Welcome to Like a Doss, the podcast where Ronnie Doss will share with you insights around life, legacy, and leadership. For more information about our resources, visit our website at dossteam.com. Now let's join the podcast.
Well, hello guys, it's Ronnie Doss. We are back, episode 6 of Like a Doss. I love it. We've enjoyed it so much, and the feedback just gets better and better. I had somebody share some feedback with me at church yesterday, so it was so good. So anyway, I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. Please share it with people that you care about, that you want to hear some of these insights, maybe just on Facebook, social media. Help us out with that because it makes a difference. We're getting more downloads than we had hoped for. I think this is just a great avenue. What a great way to get information to people. So I appreciate you guys. So yeah, share it. I've got my main man, Joel Bennett, here as always. I know you guys really enjoy hearing from Joel. I know he's got more questions for us today. So Joel, what's going on, buddy?
Ron, it's a pleasure to be here. Episode 6 is off and running. We've had 5 great episodes so far. We appreciate it again. Thanks to everyone who's listening, downloading, and sending this to your friends and family. It'll make a difference in their lives. Ronnie, last week we were talking about things that require zero talent that we can possess in our lives. A lot of times we get hooked up and dragged down really by saying we don't have the talents that our friends have, or we're not this, we're not that. But you know what? There are things that in our lives that we can possess and take control of that will help us out and take zero talent. If you missed some of those, just check on episode 5, but we're going to jump right back in where we left off. I want to talk about body language. Tell me what you think body language requires zero talent, but it makes a difference.
Well, there's a tattoo parlor up the street. You can get some language put on your body. It's really nice.
I don't think that's where I was going with that.
Oh, it's not? Well, that's what I thought it was. Anyway, body language. You mean the real physiology, how you show up? Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. How you present yourself.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people just don't notice it. And you can, like, after doing trainings with people and asking them to share with me, you know, what their goals are, what they're working through, and helping to process some people just through some roadblocks or some barriers that they'd created in their own life, you can see when someone very unconsciously is not really believing what it is that they're saying, or believing really where they're at and what they want to produce is really possible. You can see their heads down a bit, you know, they got shoulders down. You know, I think something really changes in us when we choose to get into a certain, what Anthony Robbins, if you guys know who he is, motivational guy who's been doing it for, so long, but he talks always about being in a peak state, that you can get in a peak state by listening to music, watching things, you know, seeing different things that excite you, but then you have to get yourself into a physiological state to where you stand in almost as if a pose or a stance to where it causes your brain to think, okay, I'm ready to do something different. And so, you know, you can actually jump up and down and do some like exercise stuff to kind of get your blood pumping, so to speak. But you've got to notice then how you stand and how you hold yourself. If your shoulders are back, if your chest is out, you know, they call it the proud chest. You know, you've got a chest out, your chin is up, you're looking people in the eye. That's very different than standing there and just kind of very relaxed, and you're kind of slumped over and your head's looking down. I think now one of our biggest problems is so many people are holding smartphones, Joel. I mean, they're always looking down. And I saw where doctors were talking about that it's actually suffocating us very mildly by us looking down at our phones all the time. You're closing your windpipe off just a little bit. You're not breathing as deeply. And many people are sitting in a chair. Their physiology is bent over the phone, and their reality is they are down in their hand looking at them, and they think that that's really what life is. And it's not. I think life is being willing to hold your chin up, look up, and see what's possible that's out there instead of having your head down. And, you know, when I started working with NASA, what helped me the most, man, is now when I go back out on my back patio, I'm looking up at the stars all the time. It's reminded me that there's so much more. And the only way that we can see this more is to keep our chin up. That's part of physiology. You know, keep your shoulders back, right? You want to walk as if you were at least confident, not arrogant, not some kind of swag, crazy thing, you know, but you do want to walk and carry yourself in a way that if someone saw you, they think, oh, this person is confident. This person believes, you know, in themselves. They believe that they can produce good things because, you know, we always say we hear best with our eyes. And so people can talk about certain things, but if they carry themselves in a weak fashion, if they're not really centered, if they're not really grounded, and you can tell that by how they walk, how they act. You can see it in their physiology. I do this thing where I've got somebody and I've brought them up to the front of the room in a training, and I'll say, okay, I just want you to think about, something kind of negative, something that went on in your life that maybe you're not so proud of. So just think about it. And as they're thinking about it, I just kind of shove them a little bit or nudge them. And it's like they will fall over sideways. But then I'll bring them back up and kind of everybody laughs. I don't shove them hard, obviously. I wouldn't want to hurt anybody. But then I'll bring them back up and I go, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about a time when you were really, really focused, when you were really confident, when you really believed that you were going to take it on and you were going to win, like you were going into battle. And I want you to come from this centered place down here in your belly, right? In your gut. I want you to think that way and pull that energy from there. I'm like, you ready to do that? They're like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And then I'll give them a second, and then I'll shove them a little bit or nudge them, and they don't move. They're grounded. You see, they're coming from a different place of their physiology. They're now thinking from a centered place. They're not coming from this head level up here in their mind somewhere that's off out, God knows where. They're actually centered. And the way that we do that is to really get focused, and we've got to pay attention to what's going on for us within our physiology. We're thinking about our shoulders, our chin, looking up, looking back, chest out, that kind of stuff. When you do that and you practice it, and you just notice, it doesn't mean you got to be perfect. You go, oh man, I'm kind of slumped over now. To make that notice really quick and pull yourself back and say, okay, let me do this. As you practice it, it becomes more unconscious for you. And then you're not slumped over as much. And I remember going to my chiropractor one time, and this was years ago, and I wasn't feeling very well. And he's like, man, you got a lot going on. I said, why? He said, because you're kind of slumped over. You're never slumped over. And I go, really? He goes, yeah, it becomes very unconscious if you stay that way very long. And I thought, man, well, here's a guy that sees all these people and notices, everyone and how they're slumped over in their posture, obviously being a chiropractor. But I had never noticed that mine, might not be positive, that I might not have my chin up, that I might be slumped over. But it really does come from practicing it. So if we can just notice it and make the adjustment, I think that anytime, it's even with negative thinking, if you notice it and make the adjustment, say, hey, I shouldn't be thinking this way, man, this isn't going to help me, just make the adjustment. It's making those small adjustments and continuing to practice it. That's how we get better. And then you look up and you're like, man, my posture is good. Working out, exercising, you get stronger back, right? Stronger things to hold your skeleton in place better by training and tightening those muscles. It's very important, man. It's amazing how when you take care of your body, it really causes your mind to feel better, and it works both ways. So strong body, strong mind, strong body. That's a lot, of physiology.
That's great. You know what? You mentioned something a moment ago that really strikes me. You were saying you hear with your eyes, and I can relate to that in the fact that now we've mentioned this before. All three of my boys are in college, so my wife and I are at the house together alone a lot. We don't have that interaction with the boys or whatever. So when we're talking now, if I have a computer in front of me or something like that, I shut it now because I can talk to her and she knows, or listen to her, and she knows that I'm not really paying attention when my eyes aren't to her and looking at her. I will sit there and she'll be talking, and I can actually be typing an email and look at her, and she stops, doesn't say a word, and I get the message. Yeah. But to interact that way, that kind of body language is important too, to have great interaction, is to not be double-minded in that if you want to interact with people.
If you're the kind of person that when you're having a conversation with somebody else, you're always looking over their shoulder to see who's next, have a problem. You're not present. I notice it a lot because after I'm done speaking at an event, people obviously come out either to the product table or they'll come and want to talk and say hi, shake my hand, give me a hug, whatever. I always try to give my best in that moment to stay fully present with that person. Now, it doesn't mean that you aren't friendly with a purpose. And maybe we'll talk about the 5 components to success that I just did a recording on, which is really good. But one of the things in this 5 components of success is self-awareness and social skills. And then the social skills means that you know how to be fully present with someone, but you're not looking over their shoulder thinking, I need to get to the next person. And a lot of times we can do that, is we're like so busy that you're like, yep, I'm in front of you right now, but I need to be moving on, and I need to be doing something else. And we can become so consumed with that thought that we're never really present. And it's the old saying, if you try to be everywhere, you're actually nowhere. And many people are nowhere a lot. And when I talk to people and they won't look me in the eye, sometimes I'll stop and I'll go, do you get get what I'm saying, and it kind of checks them a little bit. Do it, kindly, gently. I'm not obviously, getting really angry with anybody, but I do that intentionally with a purpose, is to get people to pay attention, because I think the most important thing that we have is our words and our language. Many people get lazy when it comes to language. They get really casual when it comes to communication. They start to think that, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal. It is that big of a deal. If you can give yourself to someone when they're in front of you, if you can give yourself fully presently to someone, that sends a message that, hey, I'm valuable. When people see that you care enough to look them in the eye and listen, they make it mean that they're valuable. Now, is that what it means? Absolutely not. They're going to make it mean whatever they want. But that contributes to people feeling valued. And when people feel valued, they want more of what it is that you have, because they like you, they trust you, because you've caused them or contributed to them feeling valuable. But if you don't look up from your computer, you don't look up for your phone, you're looking over their shoulder, what you're saying is, hey, I'm trying to get over, I'm trying to get better, I'm trying to one-up you. And I don't need to one-up you. I need to learn to practice to be present with you. And one of the things that we learn in this social skills thing that I talked about in these 5 components is that all we have is the moment, and we've got to get really good at making the most out of that moment, right? And a lot of times people don't do that well. They just think that the next moment they'll get to it, the next moment they'll get to it, and then they wind up chasing this moment that they never actually get to, and they never have really deep, fulfilling relationships. And this is a big problem for people. And so physiology, or at least the choice to stand fully present in the moment with someone, it's a really, really valuable thing. And our culture and society has really missed out on it a lot. And I get to speak to tens of thousands of people every year. And I get to meet so many people. And that's one of the reasons I love doing what I do, is just to get to meet the people. It's no longer just to stand in front of the room or the crowd or the audience, right? That's nice. I love sharing the information, but it's meeting the people. But if I don't learn to get better each time I have an interaction and just notice how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, where I'm at, and not be really present and listen, it doesn't matter if I have 100 interactions or 1,000 interactions. I've not gotten any better. And it's just like, it's the analogy of hitting a golf ball. People are like, well, I'm going to hit a bucket of golf balls. You get 300 balls in a bucket, let's say, and you go out to the driving range and you hit the golf ball. Well, you can go through the bucket of balls and not get any better. But if you put each ball down and you practice your swing, you keep it down, you focus on each one, after you've hit the 300 balls, hopefully you're a little bit better. You're not reconditioning a bad habit in how you swing. And so it's the same thing with physiology, same thing with listening and being present with people. It is so important. So there you go. There's a little more.
That was fantastic. That's wow. I'm going to chew on that one. That's very good. Let's move on to one that is very important. It's sometimes hard to grasp in our own lives and to find in our own lives, but that's passion. Everybody has passions, but to find the one true ringing passion in your life, your purpose and your passion, how do we get a hold of that? And we're all instilled with that. It's finding it, right?
It is. I think that there's certain things that we have to learn to do to help us to stir it up. I think that behaving or acting our way into uncovering more passion is the key. You can sit around and wait on the passion to show up for you in your life, but you might be waiting for a long, long time. And the reason that I say that is many of the people probably listening to this know exactly what they want to do. They have a passion, and their thing is just making sure that they stay making the right adjustments. They do the course corrections along the way. That's one thing. But many times people will say, I just don't know. It's like I've lost my passion. Well, I think that if you lose your passion on some level, you've made it about you. And so it's easy to lose your passion if you make everything about you. And so it's like, well, if I don't feel good today and it's about me, then of course I'm not going to do anything. But if maybe I don't feel that good today, but I remember that there's people that are in the world that need the product or the service or the support that I can give them, then I have a little bit of a deeper why. And so if your why is about you, your purpose and your passion, it's easy to not have to do anything. Because like, well, I just didn't feel like it today. But we got to start acting our way into feeling the way that we want to act. You see, instead of trying to wait on the feelings, if we're always waiting on feelings, then those feelings might show up. They might not show up. You never know. A song on the radio, if you listen to Adele and you start crying, feeling sad, you're like, oh my gosh, life's terrible. My heart's broken. I'm thinking about all these people that I shouldn't be thinking about. And, and then now you feel bad. But then if Bon Jovi comes on the radio and you're like, it's my life, and you start jumping up and down, right now you found a little bit more passion. You're feeling a little bit different. You've got to control your life. You've got to control the environments that you immerse yourself in, because if you don't, It's easy to start conditioning yourself to thinking, well, I just don't have enough passion to do anything. I just don't feel like it. It doesn't matter if you feel like it or not. You've got to start doing it. When you start acting and doing things, you start feeling better. Joel, you know it. There's times when we've gone and worked out before and trained, and at first you don't feel like it. We walk in feeling like, man, this is going to be a tough one. But you walk out because you've done the physiology, you've done the work, you've pushed the weights around, you've pushed through the resistance and the pain. When you walk out, you feel better. And every day I think that we need to work towards feeling better about what's possible for us, and we've got to be willing to take some action to do that. And as you're willing to do it, it starts to stir something in you. And I always tell people that passion pulls us through the process. And so if you can stay focused on your passion, it'll pull you through the process of growth. And growth is a process. But many people quit during the process because they stop feeling it, or they reach the plateau. You've heard me talk about that before, but the plateau is where you just don't see a whole lot of change going on. So you start going, well, nothing's working, so I should quit. I'm not getting the results that I want. Well, you got to learn to master the plateau. That means you continue to dig in and push through, tap into your why, which is not about you, because it can't be all about you. You figure out what your why is to serve and make a difference on the world, and you tap into that as much as you possibly can. And then one day something shifts. Something changes. You wake up and go, wow, now things are happening. People are starting to show up. People want my product. We're starting to grow again. It's when you can push through that plateau that you start to teach yourself that, hey, even though it might not look like a lot of things are changing, I'm going to trust the process, and I'm going to continue to stir my passions in whatever area I can. And I've heard people talking about, people saying, well, I'm depressed, and what should I do? And I heard a pastor talking about this one time. Somebody came to his church and said, I'm depressed. What should I do? He said, go bake some cookies for some homeless people. And the woman was like, what are you talking about? He was like, just go bake some cookies and give them to some homeless people. And she was like, okay. She was expecting something more profound. He said, if you do that, you'll see. Well, then she came back. He's like, how you doing? She goes, you wouldn't believe it. I baked some cookies. I was feeling bad. I took them out to these homeless people and saw the joy that it brought to their face to have a nice warm cookie. She goes, it felt so good. And now I'm doing it more often. You see, sometimes you got to act your way out of your funk. But many of us get in a little bit of a funk and we're like, oh, why me? It shouldn't be this way. It's too hard. The weather's bad. It's raining outside. I shouldn't do this. The pollen, the allergies, I don't know. It's awful. We can't do that. That's not what leaders do. Calm seas don't make great sailors, and we've got to get after it. We got to get our passion stirred for what it is that we want to do continually and get after it. It's that simple. It's not rocket science. Well, I mean, you know what I mean. I'm not even going to say the rest of that. But anyway, it's not. That's all.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think grasping your passion and stirring it up every day is important. If you neglect it, take some time away from it, and just watch Kardashians or whatever, passion will die. So you've got to stir it up. You've got to work at it.
Well, and don't ever say Kardashians on this again. I mean, you can't do whatever those. Let me tell somebody that already doesn't know this. Maybe they don't know. I know we've got smart people that listen to my podcast. I mean, that's what smart people do. But here's the deal: what you watch and what you put in your brain gives you permission. It gives you permission, and what you look for, you find. So if you need permission to feel like you're not enough, and to feel like you have to have the bags and the clothes and the things to be able to be on purpose and to be enough or valuable, then watch the Kardashians and let that get reinforced. But if you want to really fuel passion that's in you, read some stuff, listen to some stuff like this again and again that will kind of get in your face a little bit and go, today's the day. Today's the day that you've been waiting for your whole life. Today's that tomorrow that you talked about in your mind, that one day that you would get to, that one day I'm going to start the business, one day I'm going to write the book, one day I'm going to start exercising, one day I'm going to hit the diet, one day I'm going to go out and try to start a relationship again, meet some new people, one day. Well, now is today. If you're listening to this, today is that day. It is. But what you look for and what you find all has to do with the permissions that you feel like you need in your life. And I don't need permission to lay around on my sofa. I'm not looking for that. Because if I look for that, I will find it. And when I find it, there are people that will have to pay for the permissions that I have granted myself. And if I lay around, there's somebody that's going to pay for something that I'm not willing to do. And it's not that I have to be determined and beat my head against the wall every day going, oh my gosh, I've got to do it or I'm not enough. No, you get to a point where you know you're enough. You're then neutral and you get to operate from a place of commitment to make a contribution, a compassionate contribution to the world. Not that you go, oh my gosh, I feel this pressure like I need to be doing something all the time. And you focus on all that pressure and it causes you to feel bad. And then you just sit around going, man, this is just too hard. I really should get going. No, you just get going. It's that simple. It really is. There's no other story. You either choose to take the first step or you don't. It's up to you. You can rationalize it. You can spin it. You can lie. You can make up any excuse you want to. Or you can just go, yep, today's the day. I'm doing it right now. Let's go. And then you start doing it. And as you're doing it, you start talking to yourself going, hey, I'm bringing it. Look at this. I'm doing it. I'm getting my life on track. My life is on track. I'm making it happen.
Man, good passion. I'm stirred up now. My passion is stirred up. That actually, what you were saying really dovetails with the next one when you were talking about taking things in and listening and reading and searching out information. How about being coachable? We all can be coachable. That's a choice.
Most of the people that I work with, that I meet, are very coachable. Around me, they're coachable. I've been doing this 10 years, so, great. Am I the guru guy? No. But I'm continuing to grow and to learn. And most of the people that, especially if they ask to spend some time with me or whatever, they're very coachable. They're very humble. They're very open-minded. You have to be. Nobody cares about your arrogance. Nobody cares. I mean, I love seeing people that it's funny. They get a little bit of information, and then they think they know everything. My mom used to say that a little bit of information is dangerous. Yeah. It's because you get a little bit of information, you start swinging around like you know everything, and you got it figured out, but you don't know the dominoes that come from your behavior. You might know something, you say something, well, I know this, you wind up putting a wall between you and someone else, and now the relationship's messed up because you think you got something figured out when in fact you don't. I think it was Einstein that said, the more I learn, the more I realize what I don't know. I think that's powerful. I think that we always need to be humble. We need to have an open mind. I think we need to be coachable and teachable, because I'm telling you, the greatest blessings of my life were when someone crossed my path that knew something that I didn't know. And at first, when someone crossed my path, I was like, oh, I need to prove myself to this mentor. I need them to know how smart I am. Like, I've got something to prove. That is not how you get the best out of someone. It's not. The way that you choose to get the best out of a mentor is to just come and sit down and sit with them, ask some questions, shut your mouth, and let them speak life into you. And then you take what you want to take, and then you do with it what you want to do. But you don't need to be sitting there telling a mentor, someone that you should be looking up to, how much you know. You don't. It's just, you miss so many opportunities. And when you're talking, you're not learning anything new. Like, I'm not really learning anything new from this podcast, so to speak. I'm not, because I'm just saying what is already there. However, when you get an opportunity to sit with someone who's doing something that maybe you're not, just ask and listen. There's nothing that bothers me more than when somebody asks me, hey, can we spend 30 minutes on the phone? Could I chat with you, whatever? And I'm like, okay, let me make some time. Yes, I get on. And they talk the whole time. They do. It's unbelievable. They talk. I'm like, why didn't you just talk to you if this is what you want it to do? If you want to ask questions, questions are the key that unlock the door to the next level. If you want better answers, ask better questions. You got to figure out what some good questions are, Joel. If you don't have any good questions about life, if you think you know it all, that's one of the problems that I have with religious folk. They think that they know it all. I say they. I mean, I'm a faith person, but I don't consider myself to be religious. I don't jump through the hoops of dogma. Being a Christian, I believe I'm a Christ follower. I don't do well, you got to do this, you got to do that. I believe that I'm whole and complete because of that. I'm good. I don't have anything to prove, so I can sit and ask good questions when I'm around good people. The greatest blessings of my life came when someone crossed my path that became a mentor. What a blessing. It's the old saying, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. There might be some teachers that are appearing to you, but you're just not ready because you won't humble yourself. You become powerful when you humble yourself. You become powerful when you go, I don't have all this figured out. I don't. It's one of the reasons I love my pastor. We sit and talk. I mean, this guy's been doing ministry for 30 years, and we have some great conversations. And he doesn't act like he has it all figured out. He asks me questions. And we dive into some stuff, just having some critical thought. Sometimes you just got to be willing to ask questions instead of going on blind faith that somebody else had it all figured out or that you have it all figured out. Sometimes you just got to stop and be willing to live in the question. And that means you humble yourself. Humble yourself. and go, hey, I don't have it all figured out, but man, I'm ready to learn. I'm a sponge. I'll absorb today. And when I learn it, just because I learned it, it doesn't make me better than you. It just means I may be a little bit further down the line of that than where you are. Because look, man, you can think you're all smart, but you go, your car tears up. I don't know how to fix a car. My father-in-law is a genius when it comes to cars. He can tear them down, build them back up. So guess what? He's much smarter in that area than me. You know, and what's the old saying? If you take a fish and try to, put it in a tree, it's going to look like a fool. But if you put a bird and stick it in the water, it's going to look like a fool. You see, it depends on where you're at, who's the smartest. And so humbling yourself means, hey, I'm open to learn from anybody. You can learn something from anybody. That is wise. And to think that one person has all your answers, I think that's naive.
I think you're right. That last line there really hit. You said you can really learn something from everybody. If you come in, again, you're talking about being humble. If you come in with an arrogant spirit and you think, I can't learn anything from this person, you treat them differently, and that's not right. So I think you can learn from everybody. Everybody has something to give and contribute, and you can glean and learn from every person that you run into. And age isn't a difference. There's no difference. I mean, you can learn from every person.
Yeah. In our culture, one of the things we've done, and it's sad. It's really, really sad. In other cultures, Japanese, Chinese, these people, they have a reverence for their elders. They do. They honor their elders. In our culture, in the United States, many people don't honor their elders. They think, oh, they're old. They're just in the way of progress. They drive too slow, whatever, and they don't honor it. But I'm telling you that if we don't learn from people that have been down the road from us, we'll repeat a lot of the same mistakes. And mistakes are okay. They're okay, but it's the old saying, you keep making the same mistake again and again. It's not a mistake, it's a choice. Yeah. You got to make some choices to learn from some people that might know more than you. And I have to turn it off sometimes. I mean, because I get a little passionate about talking to people and helping people because I love it. I do. But then there's times when I have to go, wait a minute, I got to just shut up. I want to learn from this person. When I'm around my dad, I'm around my mom, I'm around my pastor, I mentioned him. When I'm around these people, I have to remember that, yes, I'm putting as much in my mind as anybody I know. I know that. But I need to also just sit and be with people and learn from them. And here's a good takeaway for today. I tell people this: you don't gain wisdom from experience. You gain wisdom from reflected experience. So that means you go through it, then you sit back and go, how could that have been different? What could I have learned? How could I have done that better? That's different than going to the driving range and hitting the 300 balls. You hit the first ball and go, oh, I sliced that. How do I change my grip here? Let me adjust my grip again so that I'm not slicing the ball. And then you hit the ball and you're hooking it. Well, now that doesn't work. And it's practicing making these adjustments. Wisdom doesn't come with age. Wisdom comes from the acceptance of responsibility. And the way that we apply that is to look at what we've learned, ask how we can improve it, ask how we can do better, right? And so when you go through stuff, just because you might be 20 years old now, 34, however old, it doesn't mean that you got it all figured out. It's amazing. When you were a teenager, you thought you had it figured out. The old people were stupid. Oh, man, they're old. They don't get it. They don't get it. Well, they've already been a teenager. They don't want to be a teenager anymore. They wanted to grow up, and they have. And so maturing is going, hey, I can learn something here, and start to apply it. And when you start to apply it, that shows us that you actually know it. Until then, you don't know it. You just know about it. So.
Right. Good. There's one more. We're running low on time, I know, but I want to do one more. Being prepared. How important is being prepared?
Being prepared is an indicator of your faith. I don't think that you can really say that you believe in something if you're not willing to get prepared for it. You're not. Brian Tracy, I've said this before, you guys probably heard it. He said proper planning prevents poor performance. And so if you really want to perform well, you got to prepare. I had somebody take me to coffee a couple of weeks ago. They're a pastor, and they said, so, Ronnie, I listened to this message. He said, how long did you prepare for that message? And I was like, 10 years. And I kind of laughed, but I'm like, I usually will put so much in that when the time comes, I'll just pull certain things out and put them together and shape and frame the message or the talk that I'm going to do. I said, if you're continually putting in, it's easy to pull out what you need at that time. And so this is why I'm always reading, different stuff. And so I think that's part of preparation. It's got to be consistent. It's got to be constant. I think you always need to be preparing. I think you always need to be taking some time that's really non-negotiable time for you building towards what it is that you say you're getting prepared for. I had somebody approach me yesterday at church. And they said, Ronnie, I listened to one of your messages, and you said that you need to, I've always wanted to be a public speaker, and you said that you set up some teddy bears on the sofa, and you started talking to the teddy bears when you first started talking. And I said, I did. And I started working with the teddy bears. I would ask the teddy bear's name, and I'd say, okay, what are you dealing with? And he'd come up with a scenario, and I would start having this conversation. And I practiced it, and I practiced it. And he said, so Ronnie, I went and got some stuffed animals. I put them on my sofa. He goes, now I'm talking to them. I'm already getting better. I was like, see, all it takes is practice. It's preparation. You can be good at just about anything if you practice. The human mind is an unbelievable invention that God created. It's more powerful than anything else on the planet, the human brain. It can do more than anything else. It's unbelievable. And you don't know what's there until you start doing it. You don't know how good you could be at rock climbing or swimming or playing tennis or golf until you do it and you practice. You don't know how good you could be at poetry until you allowed yourself the time to sit and write some poetry. You don't know how good you could be on an instrument until you practice it. And so preparation is so important in all things. And you also have to prepare well in relationship. You do. You have to put in the time to get better. My wife Jen and I went on 2 dates last week. It was so great, back-to-back dates. And last night I said, you can get another babysitter for this week? She said, yep. Because we need to be practicing this getting in the practice of spending more time together and keeping the main things the main things. And so if you think something's worth preparing for, then you got to put in the time for it. Because what you really want to make time for, you will. Everything else is just, some people say, I just don't have time. No, it's really just not a high enough priority for you. Because if it was a high enough priority, you would make the time. You would. You'd make time. If you knew your life depended on it, you would make the time. But people say, oh, I'm just too busy for that. Well, okay, great. Maybe you need to pull some of the things out of your day-to-day schedule that you've allowed to put in there and start putting the things in that are going to help you to get where you want to go. And that's the preparation and the practice. And that's what makes people great. It's practice. Practice, practice. Like I listen to my talks. I listened to a message I did the other day. And when I listened to it, I'm like, oh, that was okay. I was like, I could have tightened this up there, could have done there. I'll listen again and again, little phrases, little ways, and I can look at where I am now and where I was even 5 years ago, and I'm better. But I've got a long way to go still, Joel, and I'll practice it. And so in anything, we got to practice. Anything, practice. Physical health, practice. Putting some money away, practice. Listening, closing the laptop when your wife's talking. Hey, you start practicing that, you get better at doing it. You'll get better at doing it. So anyway, that's key, bud.
Man, that's awesome. We run out of time again today. Episode 6 is in the books. Thanks for listening today. And Ronnie, give him one more thing to think about as we go.
Well, I don't really have anything else.
Good. All right.
Here's the deal. I had this neat little analogy I saw the other day, and I thought it was great. I want to tell somebody, having a positive attitude is not enough. It's not. Having a positive attitude is so important, absolutely, but it's not enough. You can sit and argue with someone over whether the glass is half empty or half full. You can. And some people think that they're better than somebody else just because they see it half full and somebody else sees it as half empty. They see it negatively. I don't think it's really a matter of half empty or half full. And I saw this. I didn't come up with myself, but I thought it was a great analogy. It's not whether it's half empty or half full. What matters is how long you'd be willing to hold the glass if you had to. And, if you hold this little glass of water for an hour, you'd be like, well, that ain't big of a deal, but your arm might tingle a little bit. If you hold the glass of water for whether it's half empty or half full, however you see it, if you hold it for 6 hours, your arm's probably going to start to hurt. Hold it for 24 hours straight, your arm's going to get numb, feel like it's going to fall off, right? If you do that, it's not about that. It's about your willingness to hold it. And the challenges of life are going to be in that glass. The good things that come are going to be in that glass. The question is not whether it's half empty or half full, but how long are you willing to hold it, to deal with it? Have you got people around you that could help you to hold it if you needed them to? That's building a team. And then what are you pouring into it that's new? That's the thing. It's not keeping the same old water that you've had for so long in there. It starts to get stagnant and all that stuff. It's not that. It's your willingness to hold it, to build a team of people that can support you with some of the challenges in life, and you be willing to help and support them in their time of need also. but then pouring new water in. Pour new water in. You got to pour out some of the resentments, the frustrations, the anger of how it shouldn't have been, and pour some new water in, new possibilities, new insights like you're doing listening to this to make your life better. And I think if you do that, man, things get better, life gets richer, and you'll enjoy the journey. So anyway, that's
Fantastic.
it.
Like a DOS.
Like a DOS. Thank you guys so much. Look forward to talking to you again very soon. Take care.
Thank you for joining today's podcast. The Like a DOS podcast is released every first and third Friday of the month. For more information, visit our website at dosteam.com.